Are we ready? Need to get the camera. Oh, there it is. Not on that one. Okay, welcome everyone to our June 16th, 2026 Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed District meeting and our monthly meeting for June. I'm calling this meeting to order, and please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our next item on the agenda is the public comment portion. If there's anyone here who wishes to address the Board of Managers on an item not on the agenda or on the consent agenda, please come forward at this time. I don't see anybody that's here for a consent or for comment from the public. So we're going to go to the next item, which is approval of the agenda. We do have one item that's on the table, item 4.3, which is the Westview Estates Development Agreement that I would like to put that on the agenda here. So we would need approval of the agenda, unless there's any other changes from staff. I don't believe there is. Any other? So moved?
Second. With the addition.
With the addition, and second with the addition. Okay. All in favor of approval of the agenda with the addition of 4.3, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Okay, so now we're going to go to our usual old and new business with programs and project update from staff.
All right, managers, we'll start off with the usual here and jump right into lake levels. Prior Lake is at 901.89 feet. It's been slowly dropping, but we're still in this nice period where water is not too high, not too low. Similar case for Spring Lake, 910.47. Our carp management program has been busy. We've removed carp in Spring Lake as opportunities presented themselves during annual spring spawning. We received many reports through our carp espionage program where carp are seen splashing and zooming across the surface of the water. Thank you to all the volunteers and folks that submitted reports to us. This helped us remove between 1,000 to 2,000 pounds of carp just this last month. So thank you. And then you'll see in this bottom left photo some of these new tags that our technician Zach installed this spring helped identify where these spawning aggregations occurred. These tags were recorded over the course of 2 weeks. So heavy presence over by where ditch 13 enters Spring Lake, as well as on the north side. A lot of this spawning occurred in lake, which is not something we typically see. They occurred in areas where there was heavy vegetation, but it's good. It's showing that our barriers are working and that this is not where carp's typical or preferred habitat for spawning, as there's more predators. I reported in the last month that our aquatic vegetation management program was busy with contractors. We had contractors treat Spring Lake and Upper Prior Lake on May 7th. This year, we used a new chemical herbicide called Flumigard. Overall, we had good control. You'll see in these delineated orange spots, there are some re-sprouts or sprouts that occurred within the treatment zone. Overall, I'm pleased with how the treatment went, and moving forward, we'll likely use the same herbicide as long as DNR approves it. I have not received the report on Upper Prior Lake, but I'll share that when I get that.
Okay. Any questions for Jeff? Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Okay, moving on to projects, I'll touch on a few highlighted in red here. But the first big news to share is that we have, in parentheses, likely grant success, and the reason for the likely is because it won't be made official until the Board of Water and Soil Resources Board meets on June 24th and approves their grant awards, but we have been recommended and approved by the grants committee to receive funding for 2 of our projects, which we submitted for. The first one is the Fish Lake alum treatment. We were ranked 2nd statewide, and that award would be just shy of $800,000. This is based on recommendations in the Fish Lake Management Plan to address the internal loading in Fish Lake. You can see that picture there shows algae growing just as soon as ice is still on, and they're having algae growth, and which is a signifier that internal load is a significant factor there. So we're really excited about that potential award. We also were recommended for award for the Spring Lake West Iron Enhanced Sand Filter, or the Highland property, and that pending award is just over $1 million to support the construction of that filter, which will remove nutrients that are entering Spring Lake from the Spring West tributary. So these are both huge successes. To give you a perspective, this grant pool only funded 5 projects statewide, and we got 2 of those spots. They found another pool of money to add on and fund an additional 4, but it was competitive, and so really showcases how the district is doing potent work, and we're excited for this to be confirmed later this month. Yeah. But in projects that are happening this year, I'm reporting for Danielle, who's managing this bank stabilization and channel enhancement project on the PLOC in segment 1 primarily. So this will stabilize some eroding areas of the bank and manage the invasive species. So she has completed the contracting. We're going to have our pre-con meeting tomorrow, actually, and the contractor is ready to go. So the last few permits are coming into place, and they'll be ready to launch probably later this week. They'll start on that work. Also here to tell you that our Swamp Lake Iron Enhanced Sand Filter is online. Jeff and John Serafolian from UR installed the stop logs in our diversion intake just a couple weeks ago. So now with rain events, water's being diverted into our filter, will be treated, and then re-enter County Ditch 13. And Zach and Jeff have installed monitoring stations both pre and post filter, so we'll get data on how that's working. And we're excited to show people and offer a public tour as part of our Watershed Week in August this year. So keep an eye out for that as we finalize details. Yes, Manager Morkenberg.
On the picture, the water and the white pipe, is that up or downstream?
The white pipe is where water enters this first area, which is a bioinfiltration zone. So that's kind of like an additional settling area that helps keep the sediment out of the sand portion. When that water gets high enough, it'll go over that little rock berm bump you see, and then into the sandy area, and that's where it will be treated.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
Can you go back to the Spring Lake sand filter?
Yeah.
Yeah. There you have a table for internal load and
That table is for the Fish Lake, from the Fish Lake Management Plan.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then for the Spring Lake West, do you have any? I think we're reducing phosphorus by.
Oh, I don't have. It's around. I want to say 180 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Don't quote me directly on that.
No.
It's in
No, I
another
just
spreadsheet.
noticed you had a table there, but it wasn't for both of them.
No.
It was for the one. And then the other one on the next slide, I imagine the contractor wants to get going because there's no water flowing in that channel, I don't believe. So it's pretty dry.
Jeff,
would
do you
think.
know the flow in the
There's no
Pelican
water
now?
flowing out of Prior Lake, right?
It's pretty dry.
Yeah. So that's probably why they want to get going.
Yeah, they just had another project locally that they finished up, so they want to,
Okay.
that was their plan to move to this when they finished that.
Okay.
Okay, and then lastly, I've completed contracting with the applicators who will do our alum treatment on 200 Street Pond, and we are scheduled for the last week of June. So we will do monitoring based on that, but it's likely that we'll do a second follow-up treatment in fall. And the goal of this very small alum treatment is to address internal loading in what used to be a cattle watering pond that's feeding nutrients to Fish Lake. So that's all on projects.
Okay, I think our questions have been answered, I believe. Thank you very much. And good results on the grant application. I don't know how you do it, but you seem to have a touch in getting these grants. So we should congratulate staff on a great job. Thank you. All right.
Yeah, I wanted just to add to that too, say yes, great job with the grant application. And first of all, you have to write good grant applications, but a lot of it also goes into investigating the projects, getting good engineering suggestions. So by the time you submit it, it's a very good and ready to go project, if I'm not mistaken, and I think you have done that. So that's excellent. So also thank you to EOR, who has helped us on many of those.
Yep, EOR actively helped us with those grant applications, and I should mention Danielle Studer wrote the Spring Lake West Iron Enhanced Sand Filter grant, so congratulations to her.
Okay. We're going to move on then to item 4.2, which is a salary structure item. And with that, I think, Joni, you're going to give us an update or give us a report?
Yes, President Loney and managers. The district's personnel policy that was just adopted by the board last December now includes a new provision that calls for the board's approval of the district's salary structure. In an attempt to comply with this new policy provision, a salary structure has been brought forward that reflects the recently updated staff positions. The salary structure was developed by a consultant in 2021 and has been updated annually to reflect cost of living increases. The updated staff positions have been inserted into the salary structure based on a review of salary surveys of other metro watershed districts of comparable positions. So that's how we determined where to place our various positions within that salary structure. We have also included descriptions, job descriptions of each one of those positions to help the managers understand roles and responsibilities associated with each position. So staff is recommending a motion to approve the June 1st, 2026 Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed District staff salary structure.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion? Motion made by Manager Morkenberg. Second. Second by Manager Tofinelli. Now we have the motion on the table. We did discuss this quite a bit at our board workshop a little bit, whether or not we should have a salary survey done and when. I did have one quick question before we, the community outreach specialist, is that position we don't have right now, or is that vacant, I believe?
Right now, that we have titled that the Water Resources Specialist, and that is the position that Danielle Studer is currently performing. It's been slightly modified moving forward to focus heavier on community outreach.
Okay, so, all right. The only thing I noticed in there, in the job description, we still say Citizen Advisory Committee, but we changed the name, so that could be, just note that for change. Okay. With that, any other discussion here on the salary structure?
Yes,
Manager Boyle.
I concur with this greatly. Where I disagree is that the proposal is that this would be accomplished in 2027. I think it should be accomplished this year. I think we've got the $15,000 to do that. The situation in 2027, when you put together a compensation classification plan, one of the first things you do is revise, update your job descriptions. Lo and behold, here it is, right, in the document. That gives you a way of establishing a hierarchy of responsibility, and of course the hierarchy of responsibility then is related to the wages paid. In addition, information is factored in from other similar public entities. I believe that this is a perfect time to do this work, but in 2026, not in 2027 as proposed.
So, Manager Boyd, what you're suggesting is that we would do a salary survey. I mean, this is talking about the structure here but you're talking about a salary survey?
Salary survey, compensation classification plan, it would exactly end up in a similar situation, only you would have someone else's eyes who is used to doing these kinds of things and fully conversant with the various laws and personnel policies, having done the work.
Okay. You've done a lot of them. Manager Tofinelli, I think you had your hand up. But
Are we voting on what was proposed, or are we adding something that we don't need?
Well, that's your opinion, it sounds like, that we don't need this. Okay, and that's fine. You have a position. Right now, the staff recommendation is that this be adopted this year, and that next year we do a salary survey. I'm suggesting, no, do the salary survey right now so it is effective for 1/1/27. The work having been done, you're all set to go. You got a whole new page to.
So you're trying to pull forward
Yeah,
a budget that we were discussing for 2027. You feel the urgency now
Yeah.
that it has to be done.
that's what I believe. I believe it's an opportune time to do it. Could we get by without it? Why, sure. I just don't think it's the right thing to do.
okay.
I would ask we don't, we vote on what is proposed here and we don't make any amendment to it.
That's what's on the table.
Yeah, that's what the motion is for. Manager Muckenberg.
Yes, I would agree with Manager Tofinelli, and I believe also the staff was recommending 2027 because there's also some studies that will be available in 2027 about these issues that we don't have now. So we will have better information doing it in 2027. So that's why I think it's probably a good idea to wait as well. And I think you did a good job at our last board meeting. We discussed, could we try and quantify these different job descriptions and salary ranges and so on, and you did that, and I thought that was very helpful. And one thing I just wanted to mention regarding that in looking through the job descriptions is we just discussed, beginning to discuss our budget for 2027. And one thing is, with the changes in job positions and who will be doing what, we may be needing the accounting services from CLA more in 2027. So my suggestion is we did a small increase in the budget for accounting in 2027. And I think we might have to, my suggestion would be up it just a little bit more, so we have a little bit more room to accommodate help from the accounting company to make sure we have all our accounting in order. So, but it's not related to this specific question, but a thought that came up, and Administrator Joni Giese and I discussed that today as well. Thank you.
This might be a question for Joni here. If we vote on this salary structure, and then later on we do a salary survey, and it changes things, then we'd have to re-vote on the salary structure again. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
So, in a way, Frank is right. He'd like to see the horse be done now and then just adopt it one time. But the item on their table is for the salary structure. Matt?
I'm finding it odd that we're talking about doing a salary survey and that the implications are we take that survey and have to accept the findings and make adjustments to what is laid out in front of us. A survey is a survey, it's informational. We take it, we digest it, and we decide if we want to apply it or not apply it. I'm further concerned with the fact that we've been doing work on compensation. I want it to be clear that was talked in the workshop that the basis we had for building this was on 2024 information. So we're 2025, we're a year and a half-ish old, and I honestly don't see the urgency or any reason to spend $15,000 to get something we can mull over and put into place, which will ultimately be towards the end of 2026, 2027.
27, yeah. It would be done in 2027, if it's in the budget. Okay? Any other further discussion? Any other comments?
You've heard my piece.
Yep. The item on the table, the motion is to approve the salary structure as presented by staff. And so that, yeah, the motion is to approve the June, it says June 1, 2026 staff salary structure, and that's the date on the structure. Okay? Not seeing any more discussion or no more discussion? I assume you're ready to vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carried 4-1. And do we need to do a follow-up?
No.
We don't have to do a follow-up. Okay. With that, we are at item 4.3. The memo is on your table, and it is with the Westview Estates Development Agreement. And Administrator Giese, are you going to handle this?
Yes, President Loney and managers. The Watershed District's Rule J requires the establishment of buffers adjacent wetlands and watercourses to protect these resources. The rule also calls for the establishment of conservation easements on the buffers that are perpetual once again, to protect these buffers. When permitting is being performed by a local government partner, such as Scott County or the City of Prior Lake, the district uses development agreements as a mechanism to recover the district's cost to set up the conservation easements and to ensure that the conservation easements are provided to the district. The district, the development agreement being brought forward to the board today for consideration is the Westview Estates, which is located in the northwest quadrant of the intersection of Burgess Avenue and County Road 10. And once again, there are wetlands on the site, which is triggering the Rule J and the need for conservation easements. The development agreement will be recorded when the property, the development agreement will be recorded on the property at the same time the updated plat is recorded. The development agreement states that the owner will execute and deliver the declaration of conservation easement within 30 days of the final approval of the subdivision by Scott County. So Scott Soil and Water staff are working with the landowners to prepare the declaration of conservation easement that will come forward to the board likely for approval next month at the July meeting. So with that, staff is recommending a motion to approve the Westview Estates Development Agreement and authorize the district administrator to execute and record the agreement.
Okay. Does the developer want to say, or applicant want to say anything in their behalf, or? I'm just here if you have questions. Okay. No, she explained it exactly what we need. Okay. Any questions or comments? Manager Boyle.
I noticed that this wasn't in the original agenda packet, but was distributed later. Can you describe for us why that is? Is this fully baked, for lack of a better term? Or are there outstanding contingencies that haven't been addressed, but we're hoping on good faith that they will be?
Now, Manager Boyles, the lack of getting this into the agenda packet was really a miscommunication between myself and staff at Scott Soil and Water Conservation District. The development agreement that is included in the package is solid. There is no concerns whatsoever about its execution. We are still working with the landowners on the declaration of conservation easements.
And so if this creates a precedence, they're okay precedents, right? I mean, maybe we're not creating it.
And, once again, I think straightening out the communication protocol between Scott Soil and Water and myself will avoid this situation from occurring again in the future.
With that information, I'll move for approval.
Okay, that was a motion to approve, second by Manager Burnett. Any more further discussion or questions, Manager Tofinelli?
On the copy that was distributed prior to the meeting, what we are looking at here are the easements. Are we voting on this easement approval, or is this part of the process to create the easement approval?
This is part of the process to create the easement. So what this development agreement is a mechanism, once again, for the district to recoup the cost of our time and effort to prepare the conservation easement itself. It also binds the property owners to commit that they will provide us the declaration of conservation easement within 30 days after the plat is recorded. So it's legally binding them that they're committing to get us the conservation easement. And also that the development agreement also now allows us to charge the landowners fees to recover our costs for our staff time to prepare and record the conservation easement.
So it's at that point that we would approve the conservation easement. What I noted in what I saw was the easement, but the easement seemed to include the farmland, which I believe is already classified agricultural, so I just don't quite understand.
So yeah, Manager Tofinelli, the easement itself is not up right now. It originally was some original material I sent, but I retracted that. We are not doing the easement tonight. We are going to do that next month, likely.
Okay, thank you.
Just a point of clarification, but we're going to be meeting more than 30 days. But they have to, as long as they provide you the easement within 30 days, we're okay.
That is correct, Manager Loney.
Okay. All right. So we're just approving the developer's agreement. And if they don't follow through, then this is null and void, then, our developer's agreement.
Have to comply with it.
Yeah, if they don't come through within 30 days, this agreement is null and void.
It is recorded. We could, take additional action to force it. Obviously, we could also just not approve the conservation easement.
And stop it. Yeah, that it's
Okay.
not effective.
All right. So we have some protection. You have a question?
I just want to let you know that we have been working with staff to provide all the easements and the buffers that they wanted. So we've been dealing that with Troy
Okay,
at Scott County. So we're right at the level of getting it all completed. But there was a few things that we had concern with Joni to work through.
okay. You don't see you don't see a problem?
No, not at all.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Staff, you feel comfortable with everything? All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve the Westview Estate Developers Agreement and authorize the district administrator to execute and record that agreement. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Okay. And now, we're going to go to the treasurer's report with Manager Morkenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. Our financial situation is good. If you look at our general fund, you will see there's a few items that are a little bit higher than we would expect them to be this time of year. One of them in the administrative salaries and benefits. We believe that's in part due to the fact that items that should have been allocated to the implementation fund were put into the general fund. And Administrator Giese is working with our accountant CLA to reallocate the fund so it will be more correct according to our budget. The insurance also came up higher than expected, and if you look at the budget planning for next year, we did plan to increase the budget for insurance. Things like audit, we have paid, and that's done, and we passed it. The implementation fund expenditures are tracking as expected. And if we look at the cash flow, the cash on hand is above 50% of the budget value, and that's where we want to be. That's our goal. If you look at the claims list that we'll approve today, it's a pretty high one this time, total of 1.2 million. And there are expenses. Probably the big one is the payment of the Prior Lake alum treatment. There's also, I think, an interesting, if you look at the claims list, the Soil and Water Conservation District expenses are sort of allocated out, so you can see it's what it is for. It's like cost share services, farmer-led council, permitting, including easement and inspections, and a few other things. So I think it's helpful to look at Soil and Water Conservation District. They are one of the partners that we pay quite a bit of money, but they also do a lot of work for us, so very much appreciated. EOR is also very much appreciated, and we do also pay you for your services, and you can see that on our outline of the contractors that we're using. At the end of June here, we are projected to receive the first year tax settlement, which should also improve our cash balance. And while we have adequate cash to fund district operations, but it will if you look at the cash balance sheet and the graph, you can see that the cash balance will continue to decline until the second half of the year, and where it will be helped by the tax settlement back in December. Overall, I will say that our cash value will decline with more than $1 million compared to where it was last year, and that's on purpose. We in doing our budget, decided to spend our cash that we have, so that's a consequence of that. But it's still within where we want to be. We are still having enough to continue operations in 27. And as you know now, we are working on our 2027 budget. So overall, that's my report. Thank you.
Good, good report. Questions for Manager Muckenberg? All right.
Thank you.
And we are going to now go to our consent agenda. And this is item, consider one item of business, routine administrative items, not requiring discussion. So we have meeting minutes from May 19th, 2026 workshop, and meeting minutes from May 19th, 2026 board meeting. We also have meeting minutes from May 28th, 2026, our joint board and CAC special meeting. And we also have the claims list and bank purchase card expenditures, and then also the office space lease agreement renewal with the city of Prior Lake. And that's an annual thing. And compliance resolution on PID 255555053, conservation easement A1136169, Pike Lake Landing.
Move the consent agenda.
Manager Boyles made a motion. Second by Manager Burnett. And there's no discussion on the motion, it's consent, so all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Manager Boyles, would you like to read it?
It's upcoming meeting time, yes.
Yes.
Board of Managers Workshop will be conducted Tuesday, July 21st, 4 p.m., here at the City Hall building in the Parkview Conference Room, as we typically do. Following that, at 6 p.m., again on Tuesday, July 21st, will be the Board of Managers monthly meeting for July in these council chambers. The Community Advisory Committee, where's that Citizen Advisory Committee? I'm not sure which it is. It's one of the two.
CAC.
Is Thursday, July 30th, 6 p.m., here again at the City Hall, but downstairs in the Wagon Bridge Conference Room. And finally, the Watershed Week for the Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed District is August 24th through August 29th. Don't forget that.
Put it on your calendars. Okay, with that, we're at the end of our meeting. Thank you, everybody. So I need a motion to adjourn. So moved. Motion by Manager Burnett. Second by Manager Tofinelli. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously, and we're out of here at 6:41. Well done. Thank you.